Tonight on CFTK-TV News, local politicians weigh in on Canada-US relations. The city of Terrace opens a daytime emergency warming shelter, and the cold weather makes for fabulous outdoor skating conditions.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Monday, February 10th, 2025. A couple of local politicians stopped by the CFTK-TV studios to discuss the ongoing trade war between Canada and the United States, along with issues they look to tackle here in the Northwest. CFTK-TV's Damien Smith reports.
Just announced today, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that 25% tariffs will be implemented on Canadian aluminum and steel products. And this is an ongoing story, and there is much to twist and turn over the next month or so, as tomorrow will mark 1 week into the 30-day break on American imports into Canada. And Ellis Ross stopped by CFTK-TV to discuss some of this matter and how surprised he is from this development.
The one thing I thought about is that he's going to do what he says what he means what he says. And I didn't look for logic in it. I was thinking, okay, we better prepare. It's something different to watch because he's not a normal politician. He's a businessman. But what kind of a politician, I think the next 4 years is going to tell us.
However, Ross notes that the average Canadian is much more of a patriot in this current moment and that it's the highest it has been in years.
And I think this is a real chance to us to reimagine what Canadians are going to be looking at for the next 4, 10, 20, 30 years. And maybe we have to get back to the principles that Canada was founded on in the first place. Freedom, democracy, economy, free enterprise. I think we lost sight of those principles over the last 10 years.
Taylor Bachrach also spoke his thoughts on this story last week on CFTK-TV, but in local news, he is looking to keep pushing the Red Dress Alert initiative towards the BC and federal government.
We have a lot of work to do as communities, as society, to stop gender-based violence against women and children. It's a huge problem. We need political will. We need action. And the Red Dress Alert is one of those steps.
A Red Dress Alert was put into place in Manitoba this past spring, and Bachrach says that he has people signing postcards to the federal Minister of Public Safety to bring this initiative one step closer.
To put that technology in place and to get it working, to have the conversations with the organizations that work on that issue, organizations like Tears to Hope right here in Terrace and Prince Rupert working in this region, and put together the protocols and the systems that would allow that Red Dress Alert to function.
And the Red Dress Alert is a proposed system to notify the public when an Indigenous woman, girl, or two-spirit person goes missing. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damien Smith.
Terrace's RCMP say an investigation into manufacturing firearms has led to one arrest. The police say the investigation led to a search warrant at an undisclosed location that led to 2 people being taken into custody. Items that officers found during their search included several 3D printed firearms and silencers, some counterfeit currency, substantial quantities of what was suspected to be pharmaceutical drugs, as well as a few other tools used to build firearms. Both individuals got released, one with a court date and conditions related to the offense. The RCMP will be forwarding their investigation results to the Crown Counsel for charge considerations. After the government of BC recently announced they'd be fast-tracking the development and approval of 2 major mines, the Tahltan First Nation expressed their thoughts. The nation was displeased by the government not consulting them about either the SK Creek Revitalization Project or the Red Chris mine expansion that will be happening on their territory. The nation says the decision was also made despite the fact that the 2 parties have several formal joint decision-making agreements in place to ensure they discuss future mine-related matters. And a daytime emergency warming shelter was open in Terrace over the weekend. The shelter opened at the Kasan Turning Points building from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and provided a safe, warm drop-in space for people unable to access safe shelter during extreme weather. The temperature and wind chill over the weekend met the threshold for the city to access funding to work with community partners to open the emergency warming shelter. The warming shelter doesn't replace any existing overnight shelters or programs. Kasan's Vicky Serafini says things have been going well, but they are in need of some particular donations.
Something that we do need are hand warmers, mitts, gloves, and hats. And another thing that we've been sort of struggling with is providing additional food services through the shelters. With the rising cost of everything, we're definitely feeling that in our food programming, and we're less able to provide additional food for folks that are staying with us, snacks and whatnot. So if people want to donate snacks, that would be super helpful. We also have community groups sometimes making sandwiches and dropping them off for us, and that's really appreciated.
Although the frigid cold can be wearying, there's one benefit to the temperatures sitting well below freezing for a while. Lakehouse Lake in Terrace is one of many ponds and lakes in the Northwest that has completely frozen over and is now the perfect surface for skating. Locals flocked to the massive outdoor rink over the weekend, where the sunshine made for picturesque views and spectacular blue skies. The ice surface was rough and white near the edge, but became black and perfectly smooth further out. Temperatures are expected to stay cold all through this week, likely preserving the ice for a while. But just as a reminder, minimum ice thickness you need to be able to walk or skate on it is 4 inches or 10.5 centimeters. That's for clear black ice. White or snowy ice isn't as strong, and you'll want to double those measurements to ensure safety. It's also important to watch out for any ice fishing holes or cracks. Testing the ice can be done by drilling into it or using an ice chisel. Coming up next, the City of Prince Rupert works on a wellness plan. Welcome back. The annual all-native basketball tournament held in Prince Rupert just began over the weekend and will run pretty much through the entire rest of this week. Games will take place at the Jim Ciccone Civic Center, and schedules posted and updated on the official tournament Facebook page. A more in-depth news report from CFTK-TV on what's happening at the tourney will air later this week. And the City of Prince Rupert announced they were in the early stages of developing what they called a recreation and wellness plan. The reported purpose of this plan will be to assist in guiding the delivery of recreation services for the city, in addition to connecting to local recreation and wellness offerings. The city is seeking the input of their citizens so their project team can get a better sense of how local sports, recreation, and culture looks in the community. The survey is available on the City of Prince Rupert's website. Ahead of attending a global artificial intelligence summit, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spent the day in Paris meeting with sector stakeholders as Canada's desire to strengthen economic ties with the EU played out on the sidelines. CTV's Rachel Aiello is traveling with the Prime Minister and has the story.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spent his first full day in Paris among friends. Trudeau kicked off his official visit at a roundtable discussion on AI infrastructure, hosted at the residence of Canada's ambassador to France and attended by key representatives from Canada's 3 major AI hubs in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. There, the Prime Minister confirmed AI will be on the agenda when Canada hosts the G7 in June.
We will also be working to empower innovators like all of you.
Ahead of the conference kicking off, the Prime Minister also spoke at a global AI partnership event about the need for nations to cooperate on developing the tech.
Because not just it's going to transform our world, but how we do it thoughtfully, deliberately, responsibly is being decided right now.
While some Canadian AI players are in town for the summit, those back home say they're keen to see what Trudeau commits to.
I'm watching to see where the various different nation states and sub-sovereign jurisdictions land on what's next. What do they perceive as the near future?
And while the Prime Minister's itinerary is AI-centric, the other major storyline playing out on this trip is the pressure Canada is under to strengthen trade and economic ties with the European Union. France and Belgium are two of the 10 countries that haven't fully ratified the Canada-EU trade pact known as CETA. Trudeau's trade minister got the ball rolling on this conversation in Brussels this weekend, and the Prime Minister is scheduled to push it further when he heads there on Wednesday.
Trade agreements are one thing, and we have seen really great numbers, but what more could we be doing to help Canadian businesses enter into any of the 27 member states that's here in the European Union?
The Prime Minister's day ended with a private dinner at the official residence of French President Emmanuel Macron. And while it was a meal between like-minded leaders trying to cement their legacies, Trudeau could be in for tougher company at the summit, as U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi are set to be in attendance. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Paris.
Turning to your Northwest weather report, the Arctic outflow warning continues inland of the North Coast, including Stewart, Terrace, and Kitimat. Those areas can expect cold temperatures and strong outflow winds, with wind chill values near -20 overnight and during the morning hours. A reminder that frostbite and hypothermia can occur within minutes if adequate precautions are not taken. It's important to limit outdoor activities and ensure shelter is provided for pets and outdoor animals. This evening on the North Coast, it's clear with northeast winds at 20 kilometers an hour, except near 60 near mainland inlets and valleys. A low of -7, wind chill -7 this evening and -15 overnight. In the Terrace area, clear with 20 kilometer an hour winds gusting up to 40, a low of -13 and wind chill -14 this evening and -21 overnight. In the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, tonight is looking clear, with the temperature sitting at a glacial -26. This week on the North Coast, residents are in for another week of sunshine, with temperatures sitting right around freezing and some light winds on Tuesday. This week in the Terrace Kitimat area, the sunshine will stick around a while longer, and so will the cold, with temperatures sitting around -5 degrees and several degrees colder overnight. This week in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, more sunshine in the forecast, temperatures sitting chilly in the -10 range, overnight lows reaching the -20 degree range. Now taking a look at your highways in the Northwest. On Highway 16, watch for slippery sections. Highway 37, slippery sections and compact snow. Highway 37A, slippery sections between Hyder and the Highway 37 junction. On Highway 118, there's slippery sections. And on the Nisga'a Highway, slippery sections from Gingolks to Terrace. As well as slippery sections on Telegraph Creek Road from Telegraph Creek to Dease Lake. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, travel woes from WestJet flyers. Thanks for staying with us. A prestigious Canadian boarding school now under scrutiny for serious allegations from a former student. CTV's Camille Carmali explains.
It's an Ontario-based boarding school that prides itself on inspiring young boys, but Robert Land Academy south of Hamilton now combating allegations of abuse and humiliation.
It's obviously, still affecting me.
This former student, whose ID is protected under a court-ordered publication ban, says his 3 years at the school in the late 90s was a nightmare that haunts him to this day.
It made me feel like just less of a human. It made me feel depressed and alone and isolated.
He's now suing the school for $3.5 million, claiming his supervising student began unwanted and non-consensual sexual activities with him. That same year, that same student allegedly escalated his sexual assaults, demanding oral sex.
When he finally was able to come forward with it, he was accused of having brought it on himself. He was treated as though he had somehow instigated it.
His letters home filled with pleas, begging for help from his parents, who eventually pulled him out of the school. But he may not be alone. There have been multiple lawsuits from former students claiming staff physically abused and humiliated them.
The allegations of abuse go up to at least 2010. So we have heard of patterns of abuse that don't appear to have been isolated.
His hope now, putting the military-style school on notice with this latest suit, might force some real change.
You ask anybody that was there with me, it happened to them, it happened to me. I don't know how to fix a school that's completely broken.
Robert Land Academy tells CTV News these alleged incidents don't reflect the values of the school and has now put one of the staff members on leave. Kamal Koramali, CTV News, Toronto.
When you plan your tropical holiday, you put a lot of trust into the airline that's getting you there. One Canadian couple had their holiday plans go completely south while trying to get back from their honeymoon. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford with that story.
It was a dream honeymoon that turned into a nightmare for a couple trying to get home. Cody and Chelsea Williamson spent the last week of January in Cancun. They were supposed to fly home last Thursday with WestJet.
Kind of delay, and then it canceled the first flight on us.
They say a maintenance issue grounded their plane. The flight was rescheduled for the next day, then the next, and the next.
Who would think that you'd be stuck 4 days longer, and then pay out of pocket to get home because you can't trust your airline?
The Williamsons say they were held up in Cancun for 4 extra days. They eventually booked with Air Canada to get home instead of risking another cancellation.
I would say the biggest issue that I'm observing, apart from misleading passengers, is the airline's refusal to rebook passengers on competitor airlines.
Under Canada's air passenger rights regulations, airlines must rebook passengers on a flight within 9 hours of their original departure time. If that's not possible, they must look to other airlines, including competitors. The Canadian Transportation Agency is hoping to clarify airlines' obligations with proposed amendments to the regulations released in December. But some say the new wording may be problematic.
What they are essentially doing is they are labeling the vast majority of flight disruptions as exceptional circumstance, and they say, problem solved.
CTV News reached out to WestJet regarding the Williamsons' flight. The airline says it's looking into it. For now, the couple plans to submit a compensation claim. If passengers aren't happy with an airline's response, they can submit a complaint with the transportation agency. But that could be a slow process as the agency sifts through a backlog of complaints. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Turning to the markets now, Canada's main stock index rose more than 200 points on Monday, while American stock markets also climbed. The Canadian dollar dropped by 1/10 of a cent. The price of gold rose $46.80. Oil was up $1.32. Natural gas was up 13 cents, and aluminum was up $2. In Toronto, the TSX was up about 216 points. The Venture Index was up 3.66. In New York, the Dow Jones rose by 167 points, and the Nasdaq was up about 191. Still ahead, a recap of the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show. The Super Bowl over the weekend was one for the books, with the Philadelphia Eagles taking the win after 4 tense quarters. And the halftime show featuring Kendrick Lamar and friends did not disappoint. Here's a look.
For 13 show-stopping minutes, hip-hop superstar Kendrick Lamar was anything but humble.
Be humble. Sit down.
The 22-time Grammy winner, the first solo rap artist to headline the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show.
I got royalty inside my DNA.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. In a patriotic Uncle Sam, as in Samuel L. Jackson, serving as narrator to Kendrick's take on America's story.
It's your Uncle Sam, and this is the great American game. I want to perform their favorite song, but you know they love the Sioux. What song? Yeah, that song.
As for that song, Kendrick settling that will he, won't he of it all, boldly launching into his Grammy-winning diss track, Not Like Us.
They not like us. No. They not like us. No. They not like us.
The lyrics aimed at his rap rival, Drake.
Say Drake, I hate you like I'm young.
And are currently at the center of a defamation lawsuit from Drake against the label that represents both rappers. Kendrick personally has not been sued. Fellow Compton native Serena Williams taking part too during the signature Crip Walk.
No, they not like us.
The tennis legend and Drake reportedly dated in the past.
Turn his TV off.
Following the show, Kendrick celebrating with his team backstage.
A magnitude 4.1 earthquake struck in northeastern BC over the weekend, but no damage or injuries have been reported. The quake struck around 7:30 p.m. Saturday, about 62 kilometers west of Fort St. John. This comes 2 days after another quake, measured at 4.6, struck the BC coast west of Port Alice. And finally, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, but here's ABC's Perry Russum on the benefits of being single.
According to a study conducted by the Survey Center on American Life, 41% of single people say they are not looking for a date. Among the reasons cited, personal freedom, unsuitable candidates, and higher priorities.
Most often, if you ask people what they like about being single, is their freedom. You get to decide when to get up, when to go to bed, what you eat, and what you don't eat is still in the refrigerator the next day.
For social scientist and author of Single at Heart, Bella DePaulo, it's a welcome trend.
For people who like being single, it's a cause for celebration that they get to live the life that is most authentic.
DePaulo says studies are dispelling the myth that single people are less happy than their married counterparts.
They love their solitude. So for them, when they have time to themselves, that's something to cherish. It doesn't scare them that they're going to be lonely.
And she says being single does not necessarily mean a life devoid of physical intimacy.
You know, people have friends with benefits, people work out situations that work for them. So it's not really all or nothing.
DePaulo adds raising a child is not something single people have to forego either.
Of course, it can be harder, especially financially. But what I want to push back on is the idea that it's tragic or that it can't be fulfilling and meaningful both for the parents and the children.
Her advice to those who are living the single life: invest in yourself.
Do the big things that you might want to do, like moving across the country or changing jobs. Be attentive to all the people in your life that you care about without having a romantic partner say, oh, that time belongs to me. I think you might find that it's more fulfilling than you realized.
Perry Russum, ABC News, Washington.
That's our news for now. Thanks for watching. For more local news, visit cftktv.com.